The Shabbos is Shabbos Mevarchim Chedeshel, the Shabbos that blesses the month of El. And of course, the month of El is the month that precedes Rosh Hashana Yom Kippur, and it's therefore the time to begin to think about the high holidays and the judgment that Hashem judges us during this time, and therefore to rectify and to do whatever we can that we be on, so to speak, his good side. The Rambam writes that a person should always see himself as equally balanced, himself and the world equally balanced. If he does one positive thing, he tips the scale to the good, negative to the bad. And so therefore he should always have in mind every positive thing he could do to tip the scale for the benefit, for good. And therefore, says the Rambam, it is customary that at this period of time for people to add in good deeds and to give extra tzedakah. So the emphasis here that Rambam is telling us in general about good deeds, but specifically he singles out the mitzvah of tzedakah. Indeed, there's an acronym for the number of acronyms for El, and they're an acronym for tshuva, for tefillah, for Torah, for geula, for redemption, and for tzedakah. So it's interesting. The other, like tshuva, is a transformation. Tefillah is asking Hashem for things. We can understand that. General Torah study is a very central mitzvah that puts us on the right path. But tzedakah seems to be an individual specific mitzvah, but gets an extra amount of attention in this period of time, or really in all times. Why? What is it about tzedakah that is so specifically important in this period of time? And there's a couple, I'll give two perspectives. One is that tzedakah, when we come to Hashem, on Rosh Hashana Yom Kippur, we say, L'cha Hashem tzedakah v'lanu b'shas aparim. We're not asking you to give us a good year because we deserve it. We're asking you to give us tzedakah. In other words, for you to do an act of kindness and compassion with us. So the only way we could elicit that is if we behave that way. If we show that we are compassionate and kind to others, then we could elicit that within Hashem. But when we show that that's not our way, we're not showing any compassion or kindness, then Hashem responds to us in kind. There's a great little story I might have shared in the past of Rab Zusha of Anapoli. Zusha of Anapoli was one of the Chassidic masters, a student of the Maggid of Mezrich. He was quite a poor man, and he would pray for many hours and learn and help people as much as he could. So he didn't really earn much, and he couldn't really support himself. There was a wealthy man in town who decided that every day he would put into Rab Zusha's talis bag a coin. And Rab Zusha would take that coin and support his family with it. One day he comes, and Rab Zusha's not, and by the way, things went really well for this guy. He was doing well. He was financially becoming stronger and stronger. He was a wealthy man, and only becoming wealthier. Then he heard a few times, he came, and Rab Zusha wasn't there. One day after another, he asked, "Where's Rab Zusha?" So, Rab Zusha, he went to his Rebbe, to his teacher, to his brother. His brother is one of the great Chassidic masters, Rabbi Melech of Lezhensk, who's older than Rab Zusha. He is probably the father of 90% of Chassidic groups come from Rabbi Melech of Lezhensk, the students of the Rebbe Melech. And so Rab Zusha went to his brother. So he thought to himself, this guy, if when I gave the student, the younger one, I did so well, how much more so if I give it to the older one? So, instead of giving Rab Zusha, he went to give Rabbi Elimelech. And instead of things becoming better, they became worse. So he goes to Rab Zusha and says, hey, I don't understand. When I was giving you, the student, so to speak, the younger one, I was doing really well. But then now I'm giving your brother, and it went the other direction. He says, what don't you understand? When you gave me, and you weren't so discerning, you weren't so exact, Hashem wasn't so exact with you. But when you decided you're going to evaluate who's a greater tzaddik and who should get more, then Hashem started evaluating all of your activities. And so when we come to Hashem, we say, we want tzedakah. Hashem says, okay, let me see the tzedakah you give. And so therefore, that's why in this period of time, we focus on tzedakah. With another emphasis here, that we know we're judged in this lifetime, we're also judged after 120 years. There is a distinction between them. The judgment after 120 is the full picture, the full gamut of who we are. The judgment on Rosh Hashana is mostly, and those things between man and man. how kind we are, how generous we are, how helpful we are. That's where our judgment of this period of time before Shanim Kippur is all about. And therefore, that's why it's worthwhile adding its tzedakah, because that's what will elicit a blessing from above, because the way we act here is the way things are given back to us. There's a story of a rabbi from Long Island, I think, from Queens or Long Island. I think is a Rabbi Amon, I think his name was. Stephen Amon. Anyway, his wife has a yard site before Rosh Hashana, so she goes to a cemetery to visit her mother's grave. As they're going one time, a few weeks before Rosh Hashana, they travel through the cemetery and they're stopped by a group of people. Say, could you be a 10th? There's a funeral here and we need someone to say Kaddish. It's okay. So they stayed, they said Kaddish. And then before the body is buried, the children just went off. Oh, there's a tractor here, he'll do it all. This guy felt terrible. This is really a mess mitzvah. This is a dead person who needs, it's a mitzvah to bury him. So he stayed behind and he actually did the burial. An hour and a half, 90 minutes in the hot sun, the August sun. He was in the northern hemisphere, and he was burying this man. Anyway, after that, he went to find out who was this guy that he buried. He didn't know him. He called his Rosh Yeshiva from Ner Yisrael in Baltimore, where he went in yeshiva, and the fellow says, "You should know this guy." After doing some research, he comes back and he says, "You know this man. When you came to yeshiva, your father was going to pay your tuition, but just after a short period of time, your father came on hard times and wasn't able to pay anymore. And so the yeshiva called a few of their wealthy donors, and they found one guy who was going to support your tuition for the 4 years that were your yeshiva, and that's the guy you buried." Wow. Came back to him. The good that he did came back to him. And this is why before Rosh Hashanah we add in tzedakah so that it comes back to us as well. Good Shabbos.